Hello, how are you? It's a pertinent question for me, and I like to start with that because it's important for us to stay healthy. And one of the ways we stay healthy is to ensure that we are well equipped to manage emergencies. It's a word, and a lot of times we spell it right, we pronounce it right, but do we know what to do when it happens? Do we even know when something is emergency? That's a question we intend to trash out today, and of course, profile solutions as to what to do and what not to do during the times of emergency. Emergency can be in your office, it can be in your home. Someone told me that she had emergency in the dream. I don't know how that works out, but maybe she will call in to tell us how you can handle emergencies as well in your dream. My guests are all laughing. My name is Elizabeth Abay, and the show is Conversation. Let me start with you.
Are you sure you're not going to start your comedy show?
Dr. Iwagu, maybe you get to know you, but I know you're a farmer, but beyond farming, you do other things.
Well, actually, I'm a health professional, a nurse midwife, public health educator. I'm in the development sector. I'm the executive director, Center for the Right to Health.
Okay. Very soon you'll tell me you're also a banker, a media practitioner. You're moving from farming, It's all right. So,
good morning, viewers over there. My name is Audu Goji. Just like my partner here, Dr. Stella, says, I'm also a nurse by profession, a public health practitioner, and a humanitarian worker.
I always find it nice when I see men who are doing nursing. And I tend to ask, how do you give injections? How do you do all the pulpitting, especially for pregnant women and all of that? It's not the usual thing for men, but it's interesting when I see men go into it. It shows that what women can do, men can equally do, but I don't know if you can do it better. All right, we'll take a break to find out from the public.
If you put preventive measures in place ahead of time, fire will not just take you all hours like that. And also for homes, I know, especially at this time that of course, fuel scarcity is facing us in this nation. I just still want to advise. I know we don't have fuel, but we shouldn't hoard fuel in our homes because it's very highly flammable. So if you hoard fuel in your home, you just know that you are 50% close to fire already. Because any little chance, any little trigger, your house is on fire. And then maybe for supermarkets, we've been seeing a lot of people shops getting burnt recently, and I sit and wonder, okay, where are all their safety measures? Are there no safety measures in place? Like other places, there should be sprinklers in the mall, like if in case there is a fire or smoke detector, any little thing, so that they can nab it quickly. But where you do not put those things in place, that is where you see fire will just out of nowhere and it will overwhelm you.
Yeah, like in my home, I will always inform my wife and the children. They should make sure they take care of the gas very well. They should lock it very well and check. And the mother should also check again if the children should use it.
Normally, like in my own place of work, we have fire extinguishers of different types. So if there and people trained for that, if there is any fire outbreak, how to handle it, and even some of us are given the basic rudiments, some basic knowledge of how to handle fire incidents.
First of all, you have to make awareness. You can kind of shout for people to know that okay, there is fire. All organizations are meant to have what we call a muster point. That's a point whereby everybody will run to in case of fire emergencies and so on. Well, where I work, I've seen a couple of firemen coming to, sensitize. Everybody's supposed to know about this, even at homes.
First of all, what I need to do is to find my extinguisher. With my extinguisher, but if the fire is more than what I can handle, so the best thing is to find my exit to actually run for my life and save my life first.
Definitely, I've been having it in mind to get one. Though I remember at some point in time, there were some other people that came to our office to advertise some of this fire emergency products.
Okay.
So there's something they call it fireball or something that you throw into the fire. So whenever you throw into the fire, it bursts. Then it brings a kind of a powder that it quenches the fire. So I'm thinking of how to get that actually as a measure in controlling this menace of fire outbreak.
Yes. Call emergency service or use the fire extinguisher or raise an alarm.
There should be fire extinguishers around the house and the offices so that if eventually there is fire, it can be used.
If it's at home, it should be sand locally, because not everyone that is licensed to all these fire extinguishers at home and fire detectors. So there should be sand and water available.
Yeah, a fire extinguisher is highly advisable in your car. But in the case of your kitchen, you only need there's this towel they use. I think something like a blanket. Yeah, a blanket. You use blanket too, and a fire extinguisher. So.
All right, conversations is just beginning, and I know that a lot of questions, I think it's just by the promo and introduction of the topic, I see questions coming in, but I have to be honest with you, I will not take these questions now. I will definitely come to you later, but let's start with the guest in the house. You know, when that was going on, something came up. We talked about the muster points, and we made a bit of commentaries around it. And I said, how big should a place be for us to have a muster point?
That's why we say rightly, any area way or any residence or either office that has more than 25 people living with that area.
25 people or 25 rooms or 25 apartments? I need to know.
No, it has to be people because we're talking about the people. Yes.
Elizabeth, are you sure everybody know what a muster point is?
That is another aspect.
And
People don't know.
We're laughing here whether is it muster point or whisper point.
People
or
don't even know.
Point.
Me, I see it as a refuse point because most muster points, you see it on the door.
Green.
But I actually see that place as a parking store for a lot of refuse, rakes, and usually it's in office areas. Residential areas, I don't think I've ever seen. I live in a large compound. And we don't have either muster points or muster points or I don't know.
Yeah, actually, because people are not enlightened, people are not knowledgeable about this muster point because
Actually,
they don't know.
Muster point is a gathering point. It's a point, it's a place, a dedicated space where you live for people to gather and be accounted for. You understand? So if there's a fire or there's a building collapse, everybody know to run to that point, and before then the point will be designated and there's a sign that says muster point, and it would have been communicated to everybody in the building so they know that is where to gather. So it's a place you gather and have a roll call so you know who has not been accounted for, who is still left in the building that we need to go for. When we do emergency preparedness or fire drill or emergency drill, every office is supposed to have an emergency drill. If you're a high rise, that is not the time to use the lift. If there's a fire, you're not using the lift, you have to run down. And that ought to be done on a regular basis, but without warning. So there should be an alarm that goes off, or somebody screams fire, or there's something that happens, and everybody know to run to that point. And it's a drill that ought to be done at least once every month, but on a day and time that is not known to anybody, because emergency doesn't give you appointments. And for me, they have a disability. Oftentimes, people with disability are not accounted for. So when you do your drill, 1 or 2 or 3 persons must be responsible for getting the person with disability to that muster point. So it's a drill that must be practiced and communicated and practice, so that it helps to reduce death and disability during emergencies. So the muster point is a gathering point to count, to make sure everybody has been accounted for.
Okay, it's good we're learning. Now, Ms. Aldu, I want to get back to you again. I'd like to know, you are a Red Cross personnel, and I know every day you do a lot of reach out to people. We went out to the street really, and maybe not all that we got were able to put out here because of time, but it's amazing that a lot of Nigerians, possibly even people within here, do not understand the meaning of the word emergency. A lot of us thought emergency is when you're broke, you need money to solve problem. That's emergency. I am not kidding. That's also a form of emergency actually. But when emergency is threatening you in other forms rather than hunger, could you explain this and give us situations that are related to it?
Yeah, in a nutshell, we can say emergency is a sudden happening which is threatening to life. Anything that is threatening to life, and it happens sudden. It could be accident, it could be fire, it could be any disaster which is threatening to your life and need urgent attention. We refer that to an emergency.
Okay, it's good to know. I would again want to know, what is your reaction, your observation within Nigeria? Are people really prepared for it?
Yeah, just like what Dr. Stella says, those are things that we need to continue drilling after every month to make sure that we are prepared. When it comes to emergency response, we have a complete team. I'm expecting this team must be coming on monthly basis to rehearse and to drill on how to respond to emergencies, peradventure when it happens. And even the communicating network, you find out that emergency can happen in this country. For those stakeholders to even communicate and come together at once to respond, it takes time. It's because there's a gap in the communication. We don't come on a regular basis
to assess
situation, to discuss even the need assessment. You find out there's a lot of collapse building here and there, and you find out that some time to account for the people living in that compound will not be, because of the muster point is not being followed, or people are not even aware of that. So these are some of the gap we have as far as emergency response is concerning this country.
Wow. Now, Dr. Stella, okay, you want to comment on that first?
I actually wanted to help us, because this is an area that needs a lot of public education, both for the informed and uninformed. So emergency management is a cyclical thing. Okay, you have the emergency mitigation. That is, what can you do to prevent emergency from happening? What we call emergency sometimes might be as a result of carelessness.
Yes.
So mitigation are preventive things you can do. For a house or office, for example, what are the fire hazards? Are your circuits done? I see people sticking electrical wires into places, or they are caught. Water, flood, flood plain at the buildings. So what are those things, preventive things, maintenance things that needs to be done in order to prevent or mitigate emergencies from happening in the first place? And if they happen, the outcome will not be as bad. So that is mitigation. Then there is emergency preparedness. You need to prepare. What are the things you need to prepare? What are the things you need to have? There's something we call emergency preparedness kit. What are your emergency kits?
Okay, before I get to that, I know you're in charge of a center for
the right to health.
Right to health. Okay. Now, I'd like to know, have you been able to use this center to reach out to the younger generations? I believe that outside of this climb, people are taught every day on emergency management, like you said, mitigation, response, and all of that. There are three key words.
There's the mitigation, there is the preparedness, there is the response, and recovery.
Okay, so the people are taught that right from kindergarten, elementary, high school, and all of that. So by the time you're graduating, you already know all of that. So how do you reach out to these younger ones?
Well, we actually have a club we call the Youth Advocates for health, environment, and safety. It is in that safety area that we bring conversation around emergency. Safety in terms of, do you know what to do if there's a bomb? Do you know how to, what we call log roll, to carry someone in when there's an accident? Do you know how to do the first aid to stop bleeding? Do you know if there's nothing to hold somebody's leg and tie it and turn it into a splint? Do you know if there's a fire, you say drop and roll? But people will start running rather than drop, because when you're running, the fire you're giving oxygen to the fire. So those are little things that we educate people. But we're just one organization, and it's just a little program. The people know what to do when your frying pan has caught fire, things like that. So we are doing that, but we're just one organization. And of course, before you can even go into secondary schools or primary school, you need to go through all the protocols of state permission and all that. But this ought to be in the school curriculum.
Yeah, definitely.
You understand? This ought to be in the school curriculum. It ought to be in the curriculum even at university level. It needs to be in the curriculum even at the places where teacher training institutes,
like all those GSC courses.
And it needs to be in the curriculum on work as part of the workforce education, so that it is not limited to any one organization. We'll be very willing to come to NTA and start a program on emergency preparedness. What do you have? What is in your kit? Where all your hard drive, there's a fire, what is the one suitcase that you can carry and be at peace? What are the things that are irreplaceable? Do you have them in one place? So this is a conversation, it's a national conversation at every level.
What you said, it took my mind back to when my first child was, I think she was 5 months or 6 months old. Yeah, about 5 months. And there was fire outbreak, the building nearby. She was taking a nap. I was taking a nap in the afternoon. And the boys came in, Madam, there's fire, there's fire. I had all the certificates, I had all the lovely things in the house. The only thing I took, I carried my child on my shoulder.
Irreplaceable.
Good.
Irreplaceable.
And unfortunately, as much as we laugh about it, you also mentioned something. We lost a little girl in the fire because the fire caught up with her hair and her clothes, and she was running around with it. Which you have this blanket. You want to show us what to do with the blankets, when Mr. Adu, when we have a fire, how do we use a blanket to assist ourselves?
Let me just like what Dr. Stella says. In fire, we have the triangle, which is the oxygen, fuel, heat. The fourth element is the chemical reaction. Those four, by the time you remove any one of them, the fire goes off. If you remove oxygen, automatically there's nothing fueling the fire. Definitely the fire will quench. If you remove fuel and you leave oxygen and heat, definitely the fire will quench. If you remove the heat and leave only oxygen and fuel, definitely the fire will quench. So blanket like this, by the time you throw the blanket on the burning person or the burning fire like this, automatically you have put off the fire because oxygen is no longer there to fuel the fire. So virtually the fire will just go off. The rolling that doctor is talking about is also you are cutting the oxygen off. So definitely the fire goes off. So within this triangle, anyone you remove, the fire goes off.
Okay, so just if I have a blanket in the house, any blanket really, not a special blanket, I can just take it and throw on the person?
Remove, just put it on the persons.
Okay.
So that oxygen will no longer, but make sure that there are no space that oxygen goes in.
Okay.
It needs to be airtight.
Yes,
okay.
It has to be airtight.
So
once it is airtight, oxygen is no longer there. There's no fire.
I want to be sure of something. Now you're talking about airtight. If I take my Gary bag or waterproof, is airtight now? Will it
No, but that's chemical.
That's
That is-
chemical also.
okay.
It's
I
part
just
of,
wanted to
yes.
be sure.
Yes.
That will actually make things worse.
Yeah.
We're learning
That's
every day.
putting fuel.
Yeah, you are putting fuel. Yes.
We're
And
learning
if
every
you
day.
if you want to even be more effective, soak the blanket
Blanket
in
of
water.
water.
It will even smother the fire, but never pour water on
On a
a burning fire.
I was going to ask that really because I've heard people say bring water, but sometimes we mix
If you mix
some
it
detergent.
with detergent,
Okay.
then that is a chemical reaction. That detergent will actually put the fire off because
Okay.
it's now like the foam that generates from it also prevents oxygen from getting into the fire.
Okay, how about sand? I've heard about sand.
It's the same
Same thing.
principle too.
Okay.
It's also
principle,
smothering
yes.
the oxygen out of the fire with the sand.
Okay. Now, during fire outbreak as well, I have heard some experts tell you to lie down on the floor. If you're going to crawl out, you go on the floor. What is the essence of that?
Smoke goes up.
Okay.
Because what kills people in fire, before the fire, is the smoke inhalation.
Okay.
And smoke is lighter than air, so it goes up. Do you understand? So the oxygen are usually at the lower, you get better oxygen at the lower level. So when you're at that lower level and crawling out, you ensure that you don't suffocate because you're not breathing in all of that smoke and the chemical bonds that you could get.
All right, it's always good to learn on daily basis. Now, you talked about, Doctor, earlier you talked about the ABC of, management of accident victim. I'm going to take a break now. When we come back, I need you. I know you have your mannequin, okay, around, so to demonstrate that for us. We'll quickly take a little break. When we come back, he'll be demonstrating the ABC of resuscitation.
We want to talk about rights, there are obligations. I'm not saying that this government is a saint, it's very far from it. But there are things that we can do to make it better, and that's the challenge I'm throwing to you. You don't want to build this nation? I don't know where else you want to go. If I had a choice, I'll come back. When I stand outside and I hear what you have to say about this country that I know that I can die for as one, then I'm really sad because you're young. You have education, you have tools, you have a huge future ahead of you, and you're condemning yourself before you started on that journey. So please don't do that. Please don't.
This conversation, and we're looking at emergencies and of course our actions. A lot of times accidents happen on the road. We hear of people taking snapshots of the accident events and of course taking pictures of the victims rather than helping them. And at some point too, some of us actually make efforts to help. But in the course of helping, we actually help you, go faster, either to heaven or hell. I don't know which one at that point. But then we fast track that movement by our activities, usually unintentional. So right about now, we'll let Mr. Aldu teach us how to ensure that we don't move you out from planet Earth, but rather we move you safely to the hospital with the dummy right here. That's the mannequin.
Yeah, this is the mannequin, which usually we use it for training our either customers or our volunteers on how to resuscitate a casualty that is not breathing, or rather once it is breathing, then the next thing is to put him in recovery position.
Okay.
But once you assess the casualty and you find out that he's not breathing, then the next thing is to go for CPR, which is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That is the ABC of life. A is the airways. Mostly if you don't have oxygen for more than few minutes, you have a serious problem, either a brain death or you die. So airways matters a lot.
Okay, that's
So,
the A in the ABC.
Yes.
Okay.
A is the airways.
Okay.
B is the breathing. Breathing, for you to assess somebody is breathing, is to look at the chest.
Okay.
The falling and rising of the chest. And you can also put your hand to see, to perceive
If the air.
the air
To know
is
if air
coming.
is coming out. Okay.
Yes. Then you know that this casualty is breathing. The C is the compression,
Compression.
not circulation. As
okay.
far as first aid is concerned, C is compression.
What does that mean?
That is pressing the heart, manually giving the heart or supporting the circulation through the compression of the heart, because now the heart might have failed, is no longer working due to some reasons. Now you want to revive the heart. So airways is always to ensure that you tilt the head. After tilting the head, then you bring your cheek closer to the nose. Your eyes is looking at the chest, the rising and falling. That is airways. Air is coming here, blowing. You look, you feel, and you listen.
So I must wear my face mask.
Yeah.
There's COVID.
Depending on the situation, we know that I'm COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, we come and discuss that one.
Okay.
Now we are talking in the aspect of maybe your wife, your brother, your sister, your father.
Okay.
So you have just to ignore if it is somebody closer to you.
Okay.
That one has overshadowed the COVID.
Okay.
So I said, the airways, you look, you feel, and you listen. Once you determine the airways is open, the next thing is putting the casualty in recovery position.
Okay, so I tilt you to the side.
Tilting to the side so that you can maintain the airways open.
Oh, okay.
Mostly for casualties that are completely unconscious.
Oh, okay.
Unconscious.
Okay.
We finish the aspect of
the airways.
The airways.
Okay.
Then the breathing, I said. Once you determine the casualty is breathing, there's no need for going for C. You stop there, you put the casualty in recovery position. By the time you open the airways and you assess the casualty is not breathing, the next thing you go for the chest compression, which locally we say you just look at the center of the nipples and you put your heel, then you compress 30 chest compression.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30.
8, 9, 10, up to 30.
Okay.
Then you blow your airways.
Okay.
Then you continue. You have to compress the heart at the rate of 100 to 120 per minute for you to ensure that you are fully compressing that. You have to do this continuously until when the casualty comes. If the casualty did not revive back, you have to do it en route to the hospital.
Okay.
As you are transporting the casualty, you have, because manual now you have taken over the heart. You are now manually supporting the vital organs with the chest compression that they are doing. So a route until when you hand over this casualty fully to the medical personnel.
At what point do I begin to use this?
Yeah, the issue of the COVID that we're talking about now. If you have this one, but this was mostly, they are accessible in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
Mostly accidents happen at the scenes, which you will not be able to have access to this one. For COVID, you just put this one and you see the casualty. We just,
the chest is rising and falling.
Manually this one, as you are blowing, the chest will be going up. As just like at the ratio of 30 chest compression to breathing. 30 chest compression to breathing en route.
All right, that's good to know.
Yes.
Wow. So in doing this for somebody you're not very comfortable, it's important to cover your mouth.
Yeah, we have the mouth shield, which are mostly common.
I can use handkerchief,
in the hospital.
right?
Handkerchief cannot. Maybe use cellophane, just leather, just cut
a little bit.
Cut a passage and place places on the mouth just to create a barrier between you and the casualty, because you don't know his health status.
All right, so now those of us who do paparazzi on the road, you can do more than just the paparazzi. You can actually help a victim. But where you think you can do more than just this, and probably the person is talking, there are other things. I see a lot of people bleeding and all of that. So the first aid box in our cars become very imperative at that point. Dr. Stella, I often do not, I get confused. I'm not even sure I have a first aid box. Wow, I'm on air. I should have been saying this. I don't have a first aid box for real. But I have razor blade. I have a scissors, in the car. What other things do we
Do you have a
need?
makeup bag in your car?
Makeup bag.
And I'm sure there's some sharp things in that. Anyway, the important thing is to have something you can cut with.
Okay.
So something that you can use to cover wound, something you can use to cut. Sometimes the person might be caught in a situation, maybe with the clothes, you want to cut open so you can have access to some places. Like when I have an accident, maybe part of your skin is on fire. You don't want to have time to start pulling clothes up. It's better use the razor blade or the scissors to cut so you can have access.
Or even to cut the seat belts.
Or even to cut the seat belt out. Then also you can use if there's bleeding, you want to put compression, you want to tie the place so you can cut the person's clothes and use it to tie. Or maybe there is fracture and you want to immobilize. If it's fracture, if it's a leg, you can use the cloth or belt and tie the two legs together before you move. So that will immobilize. So you tie here and tie here, below the fracture and above the fracture. You understand? If you have a fracture here, you want to tie the two hands up and down so that the hands do not move independently. If there is bleeding, you want to tie above the cut so that the bleeding but then it's also important to untie every 5 minutes or so you don't occlude completely, so that the leg does not become gangrene.
It's not a permanent thing.
You don't do permanent, no. And if you're handing over, let someone know that you've actually done an occlusion, that you've already tied something, because in the emergency, they might not remember that something had been tied and you might end up amputating that leg. So it's important we know what we're doing, and in the triage system to be able to hand over to someone.
All
Do you
right.
understand?
Beyond the sharp objects to cut and all of that, what other things do I need in my first aid box?
Okay, you need cotton wools. You need
wool.
bandage.
Okay.
You need something like iodine, sometimes that you might need to put on wound. You need things that can even help to stop the bleeding.
Okay.
So for basic, you might need things for basic pain relief.
Okay.
You understand? You need antibiotics that just to mitigate infection. It might be good to have a torchlight, especially for car emergency, because sometimes it might be at night and you need a flashlight to be able to see what you're actually doing. It's good to have pairs of gloves. We're talking about infection control and all that. So if you have a pair of gloves in your first aid box, it's very easy to put it on and help somebody who is bleeding. Or somebody can open that and help you if you're the one bleeding. But if you're bleeding and there's nothing, people might be squeamish about helping you. So even the piece of gauze can be placed over the mouth for bleeding. The piece of gauze can be used to remove debris that might be in the airway, or to cover a wound that is a raw wound. Maybe there's a fire, you can use the gauze, which is sterile, to cover the place. That will reduce infection. So the goal of first aid is to reduce harm. What are the things there that can reduce harm? Those are basically, you need a scissors in your first aid kit. So those are the basic things that are in the first aid kit. They can be as simple or they can be more sophisticated.
All right. Every day I will keep learning. But I know one thing that's for sure that I need in my car, especially those of us that go home in the night, and sometimes we also leave very early, and a lot of times we run into traffic. I need a pepper spray.
Actually, I wanted to say every woman, but now all of us are at risk.
Including
should
men.
have a pepper spray. Yeah, should have a pepper spray.
The emergency is high now.
And you can even manufacture it. It doesn't have to be the one you buy from
Exactly.
this thing. If you have your spray kits, you can make your own pepper. Get some of those big cayenne pepper, add some water or alcohol in it, and you have your pepper spray.
Put it in your
that
handbag.
could put in your handbag, and
So when they come to take your phone in the car,
You
you
spray,
give them the
you spray
perfume.
them.
All right, so I'll move away from that and take it again. You're laughing at us. A lot of things are happening. That's also emergency.
Be prepared.
When you make all your money, you buy something for yourself to help you work better, to live a better life, and then from nowhere you're in a traffic. Some sharp guys decide to make do with that. You need the pepper spray to resuscitate yourself at that point. I'll ask you again, as an expert in the area. I'd like to know what is my first step. Assuming maybe I have fire outbreak or burnt, not just outbreak, burnt in the house. We cook, like she mentioned, at home, and then a lot of times it's either oil or water or one thing or the other. It spills on us. The first thing I do, I don't know if I'm right, is to run my finger, on a running water, the tap. I don't know if it's right.
Yeah. If you look at it, the major issues in burns is pains.
Heat.
Is the heat, which is the pains. So virtually, if you look at it, if you are cooking and something, fire touches your hand, the first thing you see people taking their hand into their mouth.
Definitely.
So that's to tell you that the saliva there cools the area. So just like the way you said, in burns, the first thing is to cool that area with copious water, running water, preferably running water. Cool the area for at least 10 minutes, at least. But depending on your pen threshold, I can perceive pen higher than you or your own lower than my own. I can cool your pens within 10 minutes and you say, the pens is down. But my own could be greater than that. But the most important is the cooling effect to reduce the burning process. By the time you cool it, you are reducing the burning process. And that is the number one first aid measures for burns.
What about those that put salt? Like when you're in the kitchen, they say whatever happens to you, wherever happens, the facilities around. I see people spray salt on oil burns. Is the salt effective? You're laughing. Did you ever do salt? We all did it as kids.
Yeah, when we were kids, definitely.
We did salt.
We put salt.
Can also do flour.
Yeah.
Oh,
flour.
Can also do flour, the
Yes.
baking flour.
Yes.
okay.
If you notice the temperature of flour is very cold.
Okay.
You should try that when you get home. The goal is to
I'm not going
absorb.
to try it.
No, you can to feel. Put your hand in your flour.
I don't want to get burnt.
No, you don't want to get burnt. But when you put your hand in your flour, you find out that it's cooler. So you just really to take the heat, something that can easily absorb the heat. So flour also will absorb heat. So once it absorbs the heat, it cools the area and reduces the burning, the damage caused by the heat.
All right, I'll
It just
still pick
transfer
up
of
from.
heat.
But people have to understand that definitely some of the things are not accessible. But water, anyway, you can get water, even in the bush. So that's why we always advocate
Your
for
first call is water.
Water.
All right. Now, still talking about emergencies, like you mentioned when you started, prevention is key. At home, we have seen people put the gas cylinder, inside the kitchen. The gas cylinder inside the kitchen. Where is the right place to put the gas cylinder? And even those that leave it outside, I see sometimes or hear sometimes the head is permanently on. How do we manage it to prevent fire?
You want to put your gas cylinder outside of the home, outside of the kitchen.
Okay.
And have a pipe that connects it.
Okay.
Do you understand? So that reduces. So even when there's an explosion, the gas is outside. Or when there's a pipe leak, it's outside.
Okay.
And you want to also do maintenance check on the gas cylinder head. You can turn it off when it's not in use.
Oh, okay.
But oftentimes it's not convenient, especially if the location is not very accessible. But you want to check at least once you are changing your gas cylinder, I check to ensure that the cylinder head, the gadget that connects the cylinder to the gas cooker, to make sure that it is functional, that there is no defect. And you also do not want
How do I check that?
sometimes you can put water to see if there's bubbling. If this gas is bubbling through the water, you know that the head of the distance, there's a leakage. There's a leakage there. And you also do not want to put your cylinder where it is exposed to the sun. You want it to be in a cool area.
Too many rules and regulations.
I know, just what can you do? Just do what you can. Do what you can control. But it's good to know, so that for those that are doing into construction, even the construction that we do today, not everybody have the option of even putting their gas cylinder outside of their kitchen. And these are some of those mitigation things that we should put into consideration even as we do constructions.
Okay, so I think people that build for public, people to use should make it, accessible in such a way that the gas on its own can have a muster point, right?
I like that.
Where the gas.
But do you know what is really bothering me? Especially when it comes to the issue of fire, or even in some emergencies, there's no escape route. We're all prisoners in our own homes.
Yeah. One door.
One door that has iron bar. Windows have iron bar. Ceilings are all what's that? Plastered. POP'd. So where do you escape from? Where is the exit point?
No exit.
Where is our exit point in a fire or other emergencies?
And incidentally, building and closing up all of that also reduces air. So at the end of the day, like I notice in my kitchen, at night, it's hot.
It's hot because
the deep freezer is on, the fridge is on, So you find yourself turning off the deep freezer because you want the place to be warm. I'm scared of my compressor blowing up. So I turn off the deep freezer. But then in the morning you come in to power it on, there's no light.
One thing we have to, but for gas cylinders, what Dr. Stella says, very important, we need to keep on assessing our gas cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
I just read in the social media, I don't know how true it is, they were saying the lifespan of the gas cylinder is 15 years.
15 years.
After 15 years,
sometimes
it has
expired. I might explode.
So it might explode anytime.
Wow.
So you see, you need to know how long, you need to know the expiring year of your gas cylinder. Otherwise, the connecting pipe, always you need to make sure that you inspect them.
Okay,
to ensure that
years
there are
to
no
check for you
leakage.
if you don't know.
We have rats all over. They may end up just tampering with your pipe while it is connected outside the house. You don't know. Once you on it and you are not very careful, you on it and there's a leakage somewhere before you know it has exploded. So we need always, before you on your gas, make sure we do this assessment to mitigate any emergency, any occurrence.
Yeah, and it's also important, the issue of cell phones. People using cell phones in kitchens has also been shown to be a hazard of its own, because those cell phones are electrically charged and can spark at any time. Or you come into your house and you smell gas. The worst thing you want to do is you don't even turn the light. Don't even turn the light on. You get into your home or your kitchen and you smell light.
Gas.
You smell gas. Carefully turn off the source of the gas. Carefully open the window, because any little movement or sound or friction can create ignition that would create a spark, and there could be a burn. So just these little nuggets of information can be the difference between life and death in
and
those
then
situations.
For some of us that go to power generators,
don't ever use
torchlights from the phone.
That is I almost had to fire my security guy, because I had warned him several times to not use his phone. I gave him money, go and buy. That night, I said, you must buy a torchlight. I gave him money in the morning. He said, oh no, you will do it tomorrow. I said, don't do it tomorrow. Do it now. Because you never know.
Yes.
You read these things, it works until one day it doesn't work. And then you'll be wondering, the worst thing that can happen to us is to know and not apply what we know, and then that causes people to die.
All right, let's quickly take messages from outside. Good morning. I am learning a whole lot from your conversations today. My question is, what is the step to take if a child breaks his head and is bleeding just before you go to church? I guess you're all dressed and then the child goes to break his head somewhere. What is the first aid?
Bleeding, direct pressure, indirect pressure. Make sure you have any clothes, any clean clothes, put it directly on that bleeding side to create pressure. By the time you put it, ordinary hand, I have a bleeding here on my head, it's my body. I can just say, okay, Goji, just put your hand, press it, while the first aider is there, preparing for what to do. My hand is there, creating pressure. Then I can look for any clothes and apply and tie it. Then the next thing is to move the casualty to nearby facility. Those are the simple first aid measures for bleeding.
Okay, you didn't write your name, but I hope you got that message. The next person says here, my child had convulsion, I guess you're trying to write, and I put spoon in his mouth. My neighbor says it is wrong, but that is what our parents taught us. What should I do in a place of convulsion? You're a nurse.
Yeah,
well.
the spoon, make sure it's not a metal spoon.
Metal spoon.
Yeah, because metal
Okay,
spoon.
I can actually put spoon.
Yes, you can put spoon or spatula. Just something to prevent the child from biting the tongue.
Okay. Okay.
That's it. It's not a bad thing.
What else do I do if I do the spoon business?
Yeah, once you do that, you just allow the person move out anything that can harm the person. Because when people are having convulsion, they are trashing about. So you want to make sure that the space is safe for the person. Then you lay them down and allow the convulsion to run its course. When they recover, then you can...
Doctor, we have to know which type of convulsion.
Okay.
Is it epilepsy or is it feverish convulsion?
If you can write again, he said it's a child.
A child.
That the child
if you look
had
at a child, mostly is high temperature.
Fever.
Fever. Once the fever is too high, beyond a temperature that the brain will not control, definitely the child will start convulsing.
Okay.
The most important thing is just
bring the
to
temperature down.
Sponge the child. Look for a clean clothes, put it inside copious water. Just rub it on the child to bring the temperature down. When the temperature is down, the convulsion will stop.
This thing you mentioned, growing up, I used to have a lot of fever and I hated it, putting cold water on my body. Is it advisable to use room temperature or to use water from the freezer? Because
no, we say copious water.
Tepid means room temperature. Yes. Not cold water.
Okay, not from the freezer.
No, not from the freezer, not from the fridge.
I can take over the questions. Yes. What are the processes of becoming a safety expert in Nigeria? This is from Olu in Akure. If I want to join your health safety.
Red Cross is there. Just www.nigerianredcross.org. Once you click that, then you can see register or join us. You just follow the procedure. And you have joined the Red Cross. The website will generate a DB code for you. Once you have that DB code, you go to any of our branches. All over the country, we have our branches. Just visit the branches, go with the DB code, they give you form, interview to ensure your character integrity matters a lot. After the interview, then you process your form and other things. You become a member. You just start joining the Red Cross and undergo some trainings that are available for our volunteers.
Please, we want us to ensure that it's not a paying job. It's a voluntary job.
It's voluntary
so they won't think that you're
going to have to understand that Red Cross is a voluntary organization.
Okay, so you're not making money.
Yeah.
All right, so on the final this before I leave, I need to ask this. Somebody says, thank you, Conversations, for your topic today. How are you people moving around from offices to offices? Because a lot of us in Nigeria here work in a very poor safety offices. There is no emergency, there is no first aid box in any place. What are you doing about it? Is this conversation is asking? No, I think I should ask you.
It's your office that you should.
No, I'm asking you.
The office should.
What awareness are you
Office should.
creating?
No, we have, because we know Red Cross are into. We are with you now. You invited us.
Mm-hmm.
Other journalists also invite us. We do a lot of advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Our volunteers are there all over the branches, advocating people, conducting training for people. And as far as the provision for first aid kits, we don't have the power to force an organization to have a first aid kit.
All right,
so we can only educate them to.
All right, thank you very much. Our time is up. Dr. Stella, just one word. Final thoughts?
Just be prepared and know what to do. You can learn a lot on social media. You don't wait for someone to educate you. If it is important to you, you learn as much as you can. You can contact fire service. You at work, ask your management that you would like some training on emergency preparedness, and you can kickstart it. We're all in it together.
We're together in it. Okay, thank you very much. I know fuel is scarce, and we're all tempted to put in a jerrycan in our homes. Just be careful. It's another way of causing bad emergency for you. See you again next week. Bye for now.